Thank you for staying with us. Welcome back to Morning Express on this Monday, the 18th of November. Just to remind you, our question of the day: do you support the MCA's push to have their salaries increased? What are your thoughts? They have been calling for pay increase for weeks on end now. The SRC has maintained they need to conduct an evaluation of the jobs around the counties to go around and do that. They're opposed to the same. They insist they will not return to work until their salaries are increased. That, of course, hampering and interfering with service delivery at the county level in some way. But what are your thoughts in terms of that push? Should they get more money? Let us know what your thoughts are. 22155. Tweet us at KTN Kenya, at Sophia Wanuna. The hashtag is Morning Express KTN. Time to get to our discussion this morning, the way it is. Remember, you can always get involved. If you have any question, you can tweet me at Sophia Wanuna. We'll see your tweet and read it out. And also just engage my guests this morning on the same. On the way it is today, we are joined by Professor Gitile Naituli, who's a political analyst. Asante sana, Professor. And also Barack Muluka, political writer, publisher, and media advisor. Thank you both for waking up early and being with us this morning. On a Monday, it's appreciated.
Thank you.
So one of the biggest stories we've seen play out in the past week is the decision by the UNSC, the rejection for that deferral. A lot of hopes were pegged on that. We saw a lot of attention, especially by the government and, all those in support of the deferral move, just hoping, and also a lot of lobbying was going on behind the scenes with our foreign secretary. But that has flopped. Your thoughts, Professor? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think our hopes are based on a misunderstanding really of a legal issue, trying to get it solved politically. And that was never going to be possible. Some people look at the law in very religious terms. In other words, they are so devoted to the law that it's very hard to impose political opinion on it. But also for us as a country, the deferral, I'm not so sure if it's useful, because the case still continue hanging on the hand of the president as in his deputy. It is better we sort this matter out now, in my opinion. And I think it will be sorted out
in due time.
In due time.
Okay.
Yes.
Barack?
Yeah, I want to agree with the professor that actually deferral is like buying time. I don't know buying time to go where, because in the proper order of things, the moment must come when we have to deal with this thing one way or the other. I want to, however, differ slightly and offer the opinion that with the proper management of the diplomatic brief, it ought to have been possible to have gotten a slightly better verdict than what we got.
Yeah.
Look, you have got 15 member states of the Security Council.
Right.
You require a threshold of 9 to be able to see this thing through. But beyond the threshold of 9, there's the exercise of veto on the part of any one of the 5 permanent members. We did not even get to that stage where anyone had to exercise a veto. And this indicates that the whole diplomatic effort fell flat on its face.
Yeah.
Why? Because we engaged a fairly blustery, aggressive and bellicose kind of diplomacy. Diplomacy is essentially about self-interest. That nations all over the world will engage with others, basically on the platform of self-interest.
Yeah.
Now, when you start going to various forums and you are abusing these people, you are calling them names, you are saying they are colonialists, they are slave masters, and you are saying that when you are going to be meeting them before the Security Council, you already make it very difficult for yourself.
Right. Yeah, and we've seen a lot of that happening in rallies and when the president and even the deputy have been addressing crowds. But also what is interesting to note is who abstained and what the deputy president said. We now know who our friends are. What are your thoughts as far as that is concerned, Gitile? Because the US has said for them, they felt it was not a matter that should have even been addressed in that particular avenue. They should have sought different avenues to resolve the issue.
I think, the deputy president is entitled to interpret what happens in that way. But it's important for us as a country to be a bit sober and to be less emotional about the outcome. Because like Mbaraka is saying, those fellows, they played a very brilliant card. Instead of waiting for a veto, they decided to lobby for an abstinence. They didn't want to confront the veto, so they lobbied to just break it down without basically having to veto it, because they were going to veto it.
Okay.
So we need to work with everybody. I think we need to be less emotional. So far, what we have been reading in the newspapers, the case is not really very coherent. And since it's not too coherent, I think people have nothing to fear.
Yeah.
And we can't also afford to be emotional and isolate some countries and say we can't work with this one, we'll work with the other one, and so on. We need to be very mature here and deal with this situation as a legal issue, and it will probably be over within the next 2 years.
Yeah, Barack, are our leaders being overly emotional by talking about now we know who our friends are by virtue of how the vote went?
I think so. I agree with the professor.
Yeah.
And I want to take that a stage further. And let's say there are things which need to be properly brought under scrutiny, and ask ourselves, who are these people who voted for us or for the deferral that are a section of us? In fact, when we even say for us, we have to be very careful, because I do not think that Kenyans did even take some kind of plebiscites on this to decide that all of us as a nation would like that this matter is deferred. I don't know where we really stand as a nation on that. However, taking it that government acts on our behalf, we would ask, who are these people who voted for us? A number of things stand out.
Yes.
The first thing is that none of the 7 members of the Security Council that voted for deferral, Russia, China, Azerbaijan, you look at Morocco, Togo, Rwanda, Pakistan, none of them is a member of the ICC. That is the first thing that stands out. In contrast, apart from the United States, the remaining 7 that abstained from voting are members of the ICC.
Yes.
So it became very easy for these ones who are members of the ICC to sit together, to confer, and to agree that we are all going to abstain from voting. These are the people whom very good diplomacy should have dealt with, because when you look at chapter 7 of the Charter of the Security Council, it actually does provide space for deferral.
Yes.
And it's also possible politics and the international relations being the art of the possible, that properly managed, there ought to have been found a way around and out of this problem. But you look at the people who advise the head of state. They write for him a bellicose statement that he goes with to Addis Ababa to address the AU. And from the word go to the word finish, or the finishing line, it's a confrontation. That does not help. There was need, and there is going to be increasing need for us to tame ourselves and ask ourselves what this thing called diplomacy is. And it is about being able to position your issues in a manner that attracts other people who also have got self-interest on the international arena. I think that is very important,
right.
And our leaders will need to exercise decorum the way they are going about this whole thing.
Yeah, and there's a meet that's scheduled to happen at the International Criminal Court at The Hague of the members of the ICC. What impact does that have in terms of whatever resolutions come out of that particular one? as far as the cases of the president and the deputy are concerned?
Actually, the impact may not be much because these cases have already started.
Right.
If they make new resolutions, they amend the statute, that will remove from the date of amendment. It's not going to work backward.
Okay.
And I think also the state parties, the debate there and the rush to amend, we need to know that we are not always lucky. This warranty generally, not just Kenya. To have angels, to have good people. That statue was meant for the bad guys. It was never really meant for the the nice one. So the fact that we find ourselves in a situation which is a bit tricky, which is not clear cut, it doesn't mean that we should throw out the baby with the bad water. And you can see Africa supported the ICC seriously because of our experience here. We are the only people under the India means the Mobutu Sesekos and so on. So we needed the statue. Now, the Europeans had their problems in the 18th century.
Okay.
They worked over it. We shouldn't have been intelligent enough to learn from history, but we're insisting on learning from experience. And that is why we needed that hand of us. So what I really think is the way the president has been addressing this issue is very mature. He said it's personal yesterday.
Yes, he repeated.
And he repeated that. And I think that's the attitude we needed to have so that we can intelligently and deal with this thing without making it a big deal, because I actually don't think it's a big deal given what I have heard evidence tendered so far
by the witnesses.
And by the witnesses, I don't think it is a big deal, and we need to do that now. Then differ what was the objective. I'm not persuaded that they defined this objective properly. There's a story in that little book about the 48 rules of power. Some guy, 2 people are sentenced to death, and the one of them just says, wait a minute, he offers to train the king's horse to fly. And the other one tells us, what are you doing? This man be by you 1 year, but ultimately you die. So the fellow says, no. Look here, I've bought myself 4 options. First, the king may die. Second, I may die. 3, the horse may die. 4, I may actually teach this horse to fly.
Okay.
Now, that he was buying options. Which options were we buying with the deferral? You understand that? I'm not sure if they really analyzed the objective clearly, so that there is something to gain from the deferral other than having the cloud over all of us. I mean, of course, the president said that it's personal, but when you look at it on another angle, it's not personal.
Because
but once he became the president, he became basically Kenya. He's an expression of us.
Yes.
You see that? So an issue touching on him at this stage touches on all of us because he's the president. So there's a thin line here between the state and the head of state.
Yes.
The state being all of us, and then the representative of us.
Yeah. What's your take on the impact this meeting will have, if any?
I think we are likely to end up with more egg on the face.
Okay.
First, you have seen that it's only 2 days away.
Yes.
And we are talking of a situation where a number of African states who are members, as usual, will not be able to vote because they have not brought their membership dues up to date. That is a very perennial problem with African states. But that aside, it's also true that it's not every one of the 34 member states, African states within the ICC who are for deferral. Okay, then take it beyond that and look at Article 51 of the Rome Statute. Article 51 of the statute has it that you must gain 2/3 of the overall vote.
Right.
Now that is going to be a major challenge. 122 member states. You're talking of about, if you assume that you have got all the African states in a bind, which you don't have, you'd still need another 48, which is going to be a fundamental challenge. I think, as a professor here is saying, the done thing would be for the president's team to look for ways and means of destroying the case of the prosecution. Because for a start, we are lawfully and rightly before the ICC.
Okay.
We are raising today questions which we should have raised in the year 2005,
right,
when we were ratifying the ICC statute. Article 27 is very clear that there is no special attention to be accorded to anybody on account of their status.
Okay.
And that particular article of the statute goes on to say, and especially where somebody is head of state or government. Why do we seem to be only saying this today? Are we saying that in 34 African countries that there wasn't a single brain that was good enough at that time to say, why are we ratifying this thing when this thing has been written here about head of state, head of government? Here in Kenya, we ratified it in 2005. In 2010, we promulgated a new constitution.
Yes.
When you look at that constitution which we promulgated in 2010, Article 2, 2.5, and 2.6 recognize international law that we may be signatory to. Article 2.5 talks about the general rules, the general regulations of international law. Article 2.6 talks about any international law which Kenya may be signatory to. Then fast forward within the same constitution and look at Article 143. 143, 1 and 2, 1, 2 and 3 give immunity to the president of this country against prosecution for criminal issues and for civil issues. They may not be started, they may not be continued. But the same Article 143.4 states that the immunity granted by this article does not extend to any matter, any criminal matter on which the president may be prosecuted in an international court and where the immunity sought for is not granted. Why do we seem to be waking up suddenly to start saying, oh, the president this, the president that? It's not really that one does not like the president or like the country. God forbid that anything like that should happen. But we have beholden ourselves to this law. There's a sense in which you even demonstrate that there's constitutionalism in you by saying fair and square. This is the law that we have given ourselves. Let us go ahead and build a powerful case. And I agree with him that when you look at the evidence that has been adduced before this ICC so far against the deputy president, you find that witnesses are contradicting one another, witnesses are contradicting themselves. And if that trend continues, Deputy President William Ruto is going to come back to this country one day standing very tall and telling people, you see, I told you. And I think the president should do the same, go to The Hague. However, get that court to understand that he's the president of Kenya and that we expect him to be doing certain things here for us, and therefore the excusal that is sought for should be granted, and do a good job and come back so that this thing stops being our daily agenda. Day in, day out.
Everywhere in terms of the headlines in the papers. And also now that we're seeing Britain backing his request to attend via video link, what does that suggest going forward, that they actually even are supporting that?
I think Britain recognizes one thing, that he is actually the president of Kenya. And when you immobilize the president, when the president enters the courtroom in The Hague, he is immobilized. He can't really pick call. He can't, because he is now inside the courtroom. In other words, at that particular time, he is not the president. And also, there's a tricky issue here of the Kenyan military. You see, this man, when he became the commander-in-chief, he has the military has to take care of their boss, the commander-in-chief. There is the issue now of his in the camp surrendering the president, the commander-in-chief, to the Dutch police. How does that work? These are the technicalities that also this, the ICC and other people need to recognize their gravity. And also you notice when Uhuru went there, when he wasn't the president, there wasn't really too much press and all those other things. Now he is the president of Kenya. Once he arrives there, the entire world press will not be there, humiliating us, humiliating the whole country, because he's the president who is sitting on trial in The Hague. So the issue of video link to me is a good compromise. It's the best because it allows the president to cooperate, and then it shows us from all that coverage, that negative coverage, and it also allows the president to be able to do his duty as the president. Because legal issues aside, the Kenyan military surrendering their commander-in-chief to the Dutch police, that is a difficult situation, because you are saying the Uhuru arrives in The Hague and the Honduras is in the camp now to go away. That man can be accused of taking illegal Honduras, because that's clearly would be an illegal order coming from the president, telling his deputy, now I'm
going into court.
I'm going to court. He's in the camp, now I'm going to court. So it's tricky. It's not the same as Ruto going there.
Yeah.
No.
Wow, interesting. And it's one, of course, a story we'll continue to watch in coming days to see how it develops. But also, in the same breath, a lot of conversation still related to the ICC on who fixed who. And now we're hearing James Sorengo, Senator, talking about if the president and the deputy do not reveal who fixed them, then he will do so. Should we even be talking about who fixed the other? What importance does that have? What significance in knowing? Because the case is already before the court, it's ongoing. So if we find out, then what?
I think, Sophia, it would be unreasonable not to expect CORD to do that.
Okay.
This CORD, Jubilee, they're in competition for power. Dwelling on that for CORD is very useful politically, because it can divide Jubilee and then bring an easier entry into power by CORD. But when you look at it nationally, I think it has no value. The truth of the matter is these people are actually fixing one another. That's a fact. During that time, ODM was busy fixing PNU, and PNU was busy fixing
ODM.
Fixing ODM.
And then now they find themselves in an interesting
Now they find themselves in an interesting situation.
Yeah.
So he may be having names. That one, I think you can't dispute.
Okay. So it's a political conversation.
And it will serve no purpose.
No purpose.
Because also the last thing we want is to perpetuate this the divisions among us, and also to perpetuate bandy feelings. We need to move forward as a country, and we know these things happened. People fix one another. There is no question. That's the confusion you are seeing there in the trial, because an honest witness in a courtroom, speaking the truth, cannot contradict themselves.
Yeah, from what they said before. And
no, but a created witness, it will show in trial. If the witness is lying, if the witness has no fact of what they are talking about, it will show. And that is now showing. So the truth is there may be people actually who fix others.
So this is to the advantage of the minority to perpetuate this conversation on who fixed who?
I think that is music to the ears of the CORD leadership. Remember that when we went to the elections earlier in the year, the sing-song was that the then Prime Minister Raila Odinga was responsible, that he had fixed not just Ruto, but President Kenyatta as well. There are, however, a number of things, at least two, that one needs to look at a lot more keenly. Number one, where did this narrative suddenly emerge from?
Yeah.
It emerged from the innermost sanctums of the deputy president's quarters. That Charles Keter, who is his bosom friend and who has been with him throughout the time that he has been at The Hague, was the one who blew the whistle. Was he doing it for himself?
Yes.
Are we justified to read a little bit more in this than we seem to be seeing? Does it betoken the kind of conversation that Mr. Keter has been having with the deputy president while they have been in the Netherlands? That the deputy president's lawyers in the ICC have taken a very firm stand about this, that Mr. Mtea Iringo wrote to them asking them to apologize, and they said, no, if you think you are aggrieved, come before the court.
Yes.
And we have got the substance. And then finally, that the deputy president, from what we are gathering, has been denied access to intelligence reports about the goings-on at that time. So yes, there is a political dimension, and which plays very well into the hands of the CORD leaders who feel very happy about this. But it's also true, I think, that there is a lot of substance. Remember that ultimately the deputy president has got to acquit himself handsomely before the ICC and be therefore set free. And among other things, therefore, he would need to have access to the intelligence reports. Are they going to make them available to him, or are they going to say no?
So there could be friction between the two teams, URP, TNA, in fact, as the Jubilee family come together is concerned. As much as the president, the deputy keep saying, no, there's no problem, let's focus on the bigger issue. But interesting that you should say that perhaps Keter, in making those remarks, had the blessing of the deputy president, although he then later said we should be fixing country problems.
You know, when my dog barks, it barks on my behalf because I'm the one who has put it there to bark whenever there is need. It's also true that there are no such things as perfect political alliances. People get in because they have seen something to gain by getting in, and they have also seen something to lose by staying out. So they get in. And from that moment onwards, the alliance has got to be nurtured. There will always be frictions. If they say there's no friction, they are also being less than truthful. But it's a question of how they oil and lubricate the system so that these frictions do not erupt into fire eventually.
Yeah, it will be interesting definitely to see how that conversation continues in coming days. And the ICC, of course, big story for the country. One we cannot escape from. We'll continue to monitor that as well. But let's go to the matrimonial property bill. An interesting one. We saw the debate in Parliament. The support, of course, immensely from the male legislators. The women, tried their very best, pushed for a different outcome that did not succeed. But the biggest concern for those looking at this, the analysts have argued that how do you quantify this contribution by those, especially in the traditional society setting, if their work is, you go to the farm in the morning, you come, you take care of the babies, clean the house, feed the man, make the bed, do all these things. Your thoughts? I know you have very strong thoughts on this particular bill.
I think Sophia, Parliament led the country down on that one.
Okay.
The focus on the debate and the division on the voting where only women on one side and men on one side, it just shows that we have not matured as a country to appreciate the fact that we really need one another, gender aside. These men, they have daughters. They need to protect those daughters. They have mothers, they have wives. Most of women work is hidden and is not seen. And that accounts for over 80% of women in this country, maybe even 90 actually.
Yeah.
Because the ones who work, they have a pay slip, or they have a business, money coming from business. Those are probably around 15%. Of course, in the rural areas, most more businesses are also women businesses, which men again dominate. So to make the decision that what you have contributed is what your share in the event of the divorce is to miss the point entirely. Because the contribution, when you are making home a happy place for the money to come, because you are taking care of your both children, they're happy because the mother is at home with the children. How much, what is the value, monetary value of that? The fact that you come to a happy home, you come to a happy children, because she's there. But you see also, you look at the work, you can look at it even objectively, even economically. The woman will wake up at 6 or 5 and prepare the breakfast and prepare children for school. And then you will wake up, prepare yourself to go to work. We're taking a classic example of somebody who is in Nairobi now.
Yes.
A mother, a housewife in Nairobi, and the husband is working. Now, wake up at 5, by 7, 8 o'clock, all of you now you are gone.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And then now she continues with cleaning the house, cleaning the clothes, the children, cleaning the children's clothes and all that, all the way to evening. There is quite a bit of work at home in that house. And then when the children come, when you come from work, usually you'll find that the men go on the couch and put on the TV.
And ask for tea.
Yeah. And now she is there, either bringing tea to him, or he is lying on the couch and putting the TV. And then she takes down dinner, is served. The process of washing the dishes begin, and it ends around 9 or 11 o'clock. The man is free now to go and sleep, more or less.
Yes.
Okay? That is more than 80 hours of work. That work is considered useless by that law. I think 50-50 sharing. It should be reasonable, and the idea of contribution should not come in place, because there are things that you cannot put monetary value on. Yeah.
Your thoughts, Mara? Because some would argue if they put 50-50, it will encourage others to be very lazy, because at the end of the day, oh well, I'm going to get the 50.
Sophia, I want to see you to see where I am coming from.
Yes.
That at a very personal level, I'm very strongly pro-family.
Yes.
I am hostile to divorce, and in the society where I was born and bred, we do not have divorce. Among the Abaluya people of this country, we do not have divorce. If my wife, God forbid, goes away today, in the fullness of time, and God forbid, but in the fullness of time, if and when she leaves this world, we would still go to look for her and bring her. And her children, etc., must be allocated a portion of my property, which belongs to them. It would be prorated in a certain way, considering who else has got a claim in that property. And this is regardless that she may have gone somewhere else and perhaps even had some other children there. She remains my wife. There are very, very rare occasions when we might say, okay, you go, and we return the bride wealth and so on and so forth. That notwithstanding, we recognize that divorce is a reality in this day and age that we live in, and therefore we must think about it. But I do consider that the bill we are talking about is extremely elitist.
Okay.
In Marxist parlance, we would say this is a very bourgeois bill because it's dealing with the concerns, cares, and wherefores of
middle
class and the aristocracy of this society, if we have aristocrats, and I do believe that we have some, that those are the people who are likely to get entangled in situations where you are saying, I brought this property, you brought this one, and to keep inventories of each and every little thing that you are bringing in. He argues, and I concur, that there are many things which are not quantifiable, which the women folk of this nation are engaged in on a daily basis. And if you ultimately countenance divorce, which, as I have stated, I'm very hostile to, then just say, regardless, we've been here all this time, and it's difficult for us to really value and say who has done what. Go with 50%. I go with 50%, and the same applies to our liabilities. If there are liabilities, you go with 50%. I go with 50%, and we travel on.
Yeah. So this will carry the day, Professor, won't it? It will sell through.
I'm just looking at the thinking in the parliament, and the other day I was shocked actually to find in the university where I work, when women take a maternity leave, they are also charged Mondays, Sundays, Saturdays, and holidays. They are calculated as part of that leave.
Wow.
That shocked me. I called the human resource and I asked, when did you start doing this? And they told me the whole country is doing it.
Okay.
So it just tells you that how uncaring we actually are, and our attitude towards women in general. The other day there was a vote on the happiest country on the planet, and Norway was ranked number 1. Now when you look Norway, they have 1 year maternity leave.
Wow.
1 year, because they recognize that the leave is not just for the lady,
for the child.
It's for the child, and the child is from both of us. And therefore, because of that length of the time, they are creating very happy people bonds, when they grow up, usually. And then after 1 year, you can actually take another year at 80% of your salary.
Wow.
And your job is preserved. When you finish,
here you may even attend an interview for a job, and when they look at you as a woman and they see that you are pregnant, in spite of all the other credits and credentials, they will say, oh, we shall not give this lady this job because she is going to have a baby.
Yes.
We are even
soon after employment should be going on maternity leave.
So we really need to reassess ourselves, because when we make proper and appropriate and just laws for all of us, we should know that they are for the country, they are for us as a society. And we really have the Scandinavians to look at, because they have gone in that direction extremely far. When, during the 97 campaign, it shocked me. I met one of my students and I told him why he should support Charity Ngilo that time with that party. And the boy tells me, why would I think of voting a woman? So I asked the boy if he could vote for his mother, and that he didn't have any problem.
Yes, so, because his mother is not a woman.
Now, what we are saying here is, when these people are discussing these issues, they are talking about the women out there.
They
are not able to reflect back and they look at those in their lives, in their home, and they say, it is those ones I'm discussing. They are not able to go that far. Wow. We need to go that far. Yeah.
Okay. Let's cross to a different conversation. The legislature has seemed to be on seemingly warpath with anybody that seems to not sing the same tune as they or oppose them in any way. The most recent one with the judiciary. We heard what the speaker had to say a few days ago about them giving opinions, and that theirs is to make laws and move forward. That led the president to call for a meeting between the Chief Justice and the Speaker. the separation of powers, of course, being at the heart of this, but can any of these institutions go without another having some form or level of not interference, but say, so that you're independent, yes, there's separation of power, but again, you will not be allowed to just go rogue? Barack?
Yeah, thank you. I think people who occupy certain high offices in any society ought to at all times be very conscious of the centrality of those offices and the significance of their pronouncements and their actions. Like somebody like the Speaker of the National Assembly, who is two heartbeats away from the presidency. He should recognize Mr. JBN Muturi, that he occupies a very, very important office. He should not inform the activities of that office with lightness, with levity, and that he must weigh his pronouncements very, very carefully on the scales of wisdom before he makes them. Now, you see, the National Assembly exists primarily to make laws for this country.
Right.
The judiciary has got the responsibility of interpreting and applying those laws. And it's a referral forum that we can go to when we are in dispute. That the National Assembly will, when the judiciary has, in a matter of law-made interpretation, accept that. You see, people like Charles Nyachai and others who are in the CIC have gone to the courts to seek interpretation, and they have accepted and bound themselves by what the judiciary has given, because there is such a thing as the principle of separation of powers and the doctrine of checks and balances, that you can never be so independent to the extent that you are a law unto yourself. What begins emerging, and this began, I think, with the last parliament, the 10th parliament.
Yes.
The 11th parliament is taking it a notch higher, is that we are beginning to be witness to the autocracy of the legislature. And a legislature which conducts itself with unbridled arrogance or in legislation, and goes into a legislative frenzy where the only thing that matters is the selfish interest of those who are privileged to be in that chamber. And you can see that the same kind of arrogance is transferring itself to the county assemblies, where they place themselves ahead of everything else, their selfish motives and interests. And that is going to send them on a collision path with everybody else. They must ask themselves, is this good for this country that we have been sent here as the representatives of the people? Before I take a decision on this, is it good for this country? When it comes finally to a question of administrative issues within the judiciary, I think that the National Assembly itself, however, has got the right and the mandate to summon members of the judiciary on administrative issues, not on matters which are going on before the courts. I think it was wrong for Justice William Mutunga and the JSC to decline the summons to appear before the relevant parliamentary committee. They could not say that they don't recognize them, because when they were being appointed, their appointment,
so the same people.
Yes, it had to go through the same people. So you cannot recognize them and defy yourself to them when you are seeking to be appointed. And when matters of discipline and administrative issues come up, then you tell them that you are irrelevant.
You're interfering.
And finally, I think it's also self-serving when you quickly rush to the court, which is your court, to obtain an order stopping those people from...
Okay, Professor.
I think Baragas said nearly about everything, but what I just would like to add is that I think Parliament need to be really also very careful when they are dealing with the matters in judicial, because to trash a court order, however much you disagree with it, is just this close to anarchy. Because of all the three branches of government, the judicial system is the glue that puts the society together. And anything that can cause disrespect or cast aspersions over that is of the judiciary, it should not be welcome in a society that seeks harmony and seeks order. So I agree completely that these people should have gone to Parliament, because there's oversight rule. And if you have money, if you have been given public money, and the watchdog, now you spend that public money is Parliament. So why else are you supposed to go and account for your expenditure? So I think they were too simplistic on that, the judiciary. And the summoning the Judicial Service Commission is not summoning a judiciary. They are not calling any judge to Parliament. They are calling people they have given the responsibility to manage public money. But generally, we need to have a bigger respect for the law and the decisions emanating from the court, because the president isn't something that shocked me actually. He said you can get as many court rulings as you want, fine, you will obey the law, but we will send you home and you can go and take your salary at home. Nobody has the power to vary a decision of our court. Only a higher court can vary that decision. Okay. So the president there, and he's the law-abiding number one. He is the custodian of our laws. That's what he saw. He took an oath to protect that constitution. He really should have known that nobody has the power to vary a court decision. Only a higher court can vary that decision. That statement frightened me, because we have to be extremely careful. We are not promoting anarchy. When it reaches the level where anyone can vary a court decision, that is the definition of anarchy. It's a very dangerous situation.
And the behavior and what we see the members of Parliament do every so often when they're faced with a situation that threatens some of their privileges and how they are perceived by the public. In the case of the SRC, threatening to disband them because they could not have their way when it came to salaries. The media being kicked out because of the continuing coverage on the MPs, and then the JSC and the kind of sentiments we're hearing, the judiciary coming in. Do we see this happening with other democracies, that the Parliament, the National Assembly, feeling that nobody should dare disagree or come in a way or behave in a manner that we do not agree with? If they do, then they're an enemy that needs to be dealt with in whatever way.
It happens with the mature democracies. It is lack of respect for the laid down procedures, lack of respect for the law. The Parliament tussle with the SRC, tussle with the media. It's never supposed to be personal. They are supposed to be patriotic. Put the country always first. And if you oppose me, because that is the best for the country, I should appreciate that. Because then I can only become a better person. So what Parliament is doing is also reacting emotionally, just like they are doing political rallies.
Finally, on that one,
yes, the only Parliament that we know of in history to have behaved the way our Parliament is behaving was what was called the Estates General in the pre-revolutionary France, that at some point they even stopped sitting, and that by the time the revolution was taking place in 1789, they had not sat for a number of years, that they had in fact decamped and gone to reside in the palace in Versailles, like these people here can now tell the president that in fact we are now coming to stay with you in State House, that is where they had reached. And I don't doubt that if this parliament continues with this unbridled recklessness, that they can end up going that direction. They must remember at all times that Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya talks about the sovereignty of this nation, of this republic, and they say that that sovereignty reposes with the people, that it is delegated to state institutions, that those state institutions are parliament, that they are the executive, and that they are the judicature, and that these three exercise that sovereignty at all times at the behest and on behalf of the people. Now, if they don't want to do that, and if you as an individual, you think you don't want to exercise that sovereignty on behalf of the people, then you should step down. Get out of the way. If you are a member of a county assembly and you are not happy, ship out. Let those who think that they are able and willing to perform on the basis of what is there come in. Otherwise, when these institutions begin blackmailing us and arm twisting us, we are headed to the rule of anarchy.
Very quickly, we have 5 minutes, and I still wanted to talk about a bit of the insecurity we've been seeing, Professor, on that one.
In the county assembly, though, there's the salary thing.
Yes, which is actually what we're asking our viewers. I'm seeing so many comments already coming in on that.
I'm just thinking that also Sarem team is letting the country down.
How so?
There is a lot of money being wasted buying government employees working. For example, if you are working in the university where I work, and you have a meeting in the university, and you collect an allowance arising from that meeting, what is your job within that? Now it's happening across the government department. If Sarah can shut down all those allowances, that is enough money to spread to people who may need just a little lift, because he is saying no, but I can guarantee you, you saw how much money people are collecting in the Judicial Service Commission on those allowances. When you track them across this country, it's a lot of money. But also, when I'm working, I have a monthly salary, and I charge the same employer for setting allowances. What exactly am I really doing?
What are you disagreeing on, Barack?
You know, if you want to make money, you come in the street where we work. You come to the private sector where we work, and you labor hard and make money, or fail to make money. You don't become some kind of a leech on the public coffers. There are some people who even appear in those places just to sign.
So that means you're agreeing, you're not disagreeing.
To sign the register and go away and collect those monies. We are the only country that pays the kinds of grotesque figures that we do to these elected leaders. They have gotten there by coming to us to ask us to elect them. If they don't like it, I'm sure there are other people who would like it. Let them just get out of the way. Let them ship out.
But
they ship up or ship out.
But the truth is, they want to do that. Rationalizing, to me, government compensation system, it requires that these people close all the loopholes that in government servants use to make money from the public. They have not closed those loopholes. They have not even started closing them. They are preoccupied with analyzing this salary thing. The beginning is to close the loopholes that people use to throw the money from the public. There are people who get paid for meetings which they don't attend. You are paid, for example, a certain amount for attending a certain meeting, and the meeting takes place once in a year, but you have a monthly allowance for that within this republic. These are the areas they need to tackle.
85% of public revenue in this country goes to recurrent expenditure. things like salaries, running those offices, the cars that they run in, the bodyguards that they have. I don't know which crimes they have committed that they are so afraid of meeting.
They are bodyguards even in the universities.
Yeah, and we cannot afford that.
Okay.
We want to release those funds to do development.
Finally, gentlemen, the National Survey on Corruption, EACC, released it the other day. The police, the security agencies performing very poorly. And now with the insurgents and crimes, we're seeing more cases of that, and police being, alleged that they're involved, ex-police officers, ex-KDF, we've heard of that as well. Going forward, in terms of this situation, how it's been handled, you'll hear a few people were fired here and there. We've had reassurances from the government, from Lenku, and others. What is going to happen going forward? Is this being dealt with properly?
I don't think it's being dealt with properly. First, I think we need a very clear policy and some kind of strategic thrust, sense of direction with regard to people who retire even out of natural attrition from the defense forces, from the police department.
Right.
What do we do with them? Do we really care where these people go eventually? One is not trying to justify crime here, but we are just looking at the situation very realistically.
Where they find themselves.
Yes, where do these people find themselves eventually? That starting, for example, from the year 1982, which is well over 30 years ago today, when we had this huge gush of these people being spilled into the public domain. Did we really care where these people were going, what they were going to do with themselves? And all those others who have been retiring or being dismissed and so on. When you see members of the defense forces or the police force being involved with crime, with ordinary criminals, obviously there is a nexus between them and their colleagues who already left. That's how they are able to coordinate these things and become the kind of very dangerous menace that they are. And we need a very clear direction on what we are going to do with these people once they leave service, so that they are usefully engaged without seeming to justify crime.
Professor?
As a society, there are some very serious weaknesses actually in our system. I want to agree with Barak completely, because we are rational beings, and they say about a rational being is when you are given two choices to make, you take the choice which maximizes returns to you and minimizes cost.
Right.
Now, most Kenyans, when we talk about corruption, because what happened, crime and corruption is one and the same thing, is very related. Is somebody has worked for 30 years or 20 years, you retire, and you retire on a 2,000 or 4,000 shillings per month.
Yes.
Now the temptation for you to go into crime is too high.
Right.
That means we need to fix our system. The retirement system need to be looked at.
Right.
In some countries which I know, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, when you retire with your same salary you are earning, except it goes up because they stop taking the taxes.
Right.
You understand that? So nothing has changed for you. In fact, you are better off when you retire than when you didn't retire, because when you are working, you pay the taxes. When you retire, the taxes is now taken back, so you get your gross. Every month you get your gross. That's why they can trouble and have leisure and so on.
Yeah.
So we need to rethink our retirement packages, because this is what also fueling corruption. People see an opportunity to fix retirement.
Finally, if I may put in a word sideways, that we lack a clear and sustainable youth agenda, that we are producing so many young people out of institutions of learning without a very clear idea about what we want to do with them. Last week alone, we freed about 900,000 from primary school. Sometime next year, an insignificant fraction will be absorbed in high school, and it will also eventually succumb to natural attrition after 4 years of high school. What are we doing with these people? We have good things like this Uwezo Fund, which I have seen already the members of the National Assembly would like to hijack. Okay, but how has it been rationalized? How are we growing the medium, the small and medium enterprises sector to bring in these people in a sustainable manner that can see them grow themselves and grow the economy, so that in future there are more absorptive possibilities. These are things which must be addressed. Insecurity is not going to be addressed by going around with guns and looking for people to gun down.
Right. It's 8:06 a.m. In less than a minute, gentlemen, I want you to, in light of the state of the country, state of affairs, and some of the stories we've discussed, that most will be developing, and we'll see how they'll play out in coming days. What do you see happening? Very briefly, Professor.
I think I see this country getting better and better, because we are becoming more and more human, in my opinion. There used to be a few years ago, really, the society, we have been growing children without the fathers being there. They are in the bars 90% of the time. Now I see less of that, and that means we are bringing more happier people. And more happier people is more loving, so that even when you are a crook, you don't have to give somebody to take his money. You can just take the money and leave the person to make some more for you.
Things will get better, Professor.
Get better.
Barak?
I don't agree that we are becoming more and more humane. When I leave this place in the next few minutes, it's going to be hell for me to just join Mombasa road here. I'll be a single car waiting in the traffic to join in, and they will all be coming flying as if they've come from the barrel of the gun, and as I try to sneak in, they'll be hooting at me. A humane society would be one which says, oh, there's this motorist here, let us give him a bit of space so that he also joins in. A humane society would be one which says this development projects Uwezo Fund, good things for this country, let us support it to work, not to go out and grab it. But I think very, very significantly, the president has got an onerous task on his head and shoulders. Together with his deputy and with the other notables in their government, they should help this country to start shifting the conversation away from the unending story and saga of the ICC to more meaningful and useful things that can help us to move forward. They're going to need to engage with the diplomatic community, to be less bellicose with our traditional friends and partners, and find ways of quiet diplomacy that can help to normalize things, so that our agenda becomes the agenda for which leaders are elected, not these things of every day. And when the deputy president tells people, stop talking about this ICC, you cannot be talking about it and expecting everybody else
not
to shut up. So you must start shifting the dial and the matrix away from these debilitating ICC issues to a national developmental agenda.
All right. Thank you, Barak Muluka, Professor Gitila Naituli. Thank you both for being part of the show this morning.